Good evening, everyone. I am Adriano de Souza, and welcome to the AES Sports Legacy channel. Our program, Vivências do Esporte, has in mind to inform, to debate, to promote, and to entertain. This program has a talk show format that talks about relevant subjects such as education, sports, culture, politics, economy, and so on. To maintain the quality of this show, on this evening we have on backstage giving us a great technical support, giving all information and taking questions from our audience are Lieli Marcondes and Eder Mota. To present this show with me this evening are Edno de Souza and José Luiz Barbosa. The idea of offering the best this evening would not be different. This evening, we are honored to receive on our AES Sports Legacy channel to participate on Vivências do Esporte program. We have an outstanding professional, a fantastic human being who has made a difference in the way people see sports. It is with a great satisfaction that I introduce you all, Tony Zefireto. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure being here.
Nice. Before I start, I would like to remind you to support our channel. Please subscribe the channel, ring the bell, and share in your social media network, inviting friends, because there is and still have time to watch this show, this wonderful show. Okay? Yeah, Tony. Good evening again. How are you? It is a great satisfaction to have you here with us. Please feel at home, feel comfortable, feel free to say what you think. Okay? Tony, I don't know if you are ready, but we prepare very good questions for you because, you know, like I said before, this program has the main idea to educate people with giving information that people doesn't know. That's why I will explain a little bit, like a small story to explain to the people, and then I will make the question for you, okay?
Yes.
Tony, you are a successful entrepreneur with extensive experience in several areas. You have a degree in science, physical education, sports, medicine, and sports management, right?
Yes, Adriano.
This means that, unfortunately, we will not be able to address all issues tonight. But fortunately, it shows that you are and will always be welcome to participate in several other programs in this show. All right?
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. Well, Tony, to start, let's take a very important point for us. That is education. Okay? Well, Reinaldo Niemeyer, Luis Johnson, and Pedro Machado, our first guests, were unanimous in talking about the importance of education. They score what the United States does, and it shows that the country is practically unique in this educational process. This process is so unique that it has made the United States have a very significant sports entertainment sector, the national economy. According to what was said by Nehemiah, Johnson, and Machado, the beginning of the sports educational system is in the high school. As a principal of Lafayette High School, athletic director, and grade level at Springstead High School, now it is the question for you. Could you describe to us what this work is like and how the high school educational sports mechanism works? It's in your hand, Tony.
Adriano, I'm going to take this a little bit step further, and I'm going to use my son as an example. One of the places that one of my stops in professional baseball, my family moved all around the country and had the wonderful opportunity to explore a lot of different areas. And when we lived in Texas, my son decided to play baseball and football. And he was only in junior high school. He was big. He was 6'1". He was very fast, very skilled. But he had never played sports. I never pushed him. I will tell you this. At 6 o'clock in the morning, he had to be on the football field, practicing for 2 hours. School would start at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours later. All the football players, and there was a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team. All of the players, and it was about 120 to 150 players, they would all run inside the school. They would go to their homeroom classes, check into school, get all the announcements, what happened during the day, and then they would have first period physical education, and they would be outside for they go back outside for another 45 minutes, practice some more, and go back, shower, and then attend class all day. So throughout in the South, that's more prevalent than it is in the North in the United States. But I will tell you this: it is so important, education, because if you don't have grades, if you don't attend class, if you don't pass your classes, you're not going to play any sports. And that is a preface to the entire sports program. And of course it continues. It's no different when you're in high school. It's no different when you're in college. There's certain standards that you have to obtain in the classroom, and the standards have actually, they've gotten tougher. It varies from state to state, and actually city to city. I should say county to county, but it is stressed that everybody has to get an education, and it's so important. Once upon a time, athletes, especially premier athletes, would go to college, and it wasn't stressed. All they wanted to. As long as they were a great athlete, they can go out and play. And that was it, and they overlooked. But not anymore, because their standards are very strict, and I have a lot of respect for that. And one of the things I used to do with my athletes, as you mentioned, I was a former high school coach in baseball, football, basketball, and I coached other sports. And I was a head college baseball coach. I coached college football. And one of the things that I did at the high school level is I would actually take our student athletes, that part of them playing was I would take them, and I created what was called a mentorship program. And I would take them and into elementary schools and into middle schools and junior high schools. And this way they could speak about the importance of family values, about education, of course, and how important the education is. And they teach them, simple things that we take for granted, like health and all of that. But that was mandatory with me. They were extension of our school. It was put upon them to stay in school, and yet, they would teach the same thing to the other youngsters, and they became mentors.
Oh, awesome. Because you spoke a little bit what we're going to talk right now. Because you said about the mentor program, right?
Yes.
Okay, Tony. First of all, I apologize to not say you are more than welcome. And I started right now pretty fast and saying about this, but I'm so connected with this transmission because it's so important for us, what you were saying, because we are working for education all the time. This is our mission here. And you created this program and you developed this program. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. But in the time that you created this program, we have a couple of things behind us. Because before, at the time you were at Department of Education of the city of New York, in 1960s, 70s, 80s, New York was going through a very difficult period, if you remember that time. Since we came from a devastating internal period, the fight for civil rights in the 60s. In the 70s, we have the Vietnam War. In the 80s, we had a little transition, and you were there doing your job, just like you described it here, as a mentor, developing for students, athletes on the high schools, elementary schools, in the middle school. But my question here is, could you tell us what strategy was used and what was the purpose of this program that you created at the time?
Well, I mean, it was very simple. I mean, you spoke about at one point, and I'll relate to this. One point, basically elaborating on what you shared. At one point, New York City school system was actually going to do away with the JV sports program, entire sports program, because of financing. So I was actually a football official at the time, and I was asked to oversee the program for teams and schools that could still financially have sports programs. And what I did is I oversaw it, and we actually because insurance policies would no longer accept schools as varsity programs because they couldn't, they're junior varsity programs, we classified them as varsity B programs, okay, instead of JV. And then what we did was I went into high schools and I said, hey, do you want to? You don't want youngsters on the streets, because if they don't have sports, that's what they do in their hearts. They watch TV, they idolize some of our athletes, so that's the draw to keep them into schools. Because if they play sports, again, they have to meet the educational requirements. So what I did was I went into the schools and said, hey, do you want to play football? Do you want to have a football program? Do you want to have a basketball program? What programs can you go ahead and do? Softball. Softball is a perfect example for the ladies. And track, men's track, women's track, which is not an expensive sport to start. So what I did was I found out, and there's a lot of schools in New York, and we found out what schools wanted to continue in football and all those other sports. And we said, okay, let me make this happen. And then I brought in some people that I knew, so I put a person in charge of each sport, and we made sure that the sports programs during those seasons continue. And this way, all these students were a little bit more motivated to attend school, because they knew I did not throw out the educational requirements, that's for sure. They were still important. So we kind of reeled them in a little bit, and we really served many youngsters to keep them in school and continue their education.
Wow,
Tony,
awesome.
Tony, you said that it was very simple, but sometimes in our country, in Latin America, we don't see that simple. And my question is, would it be possible to have a program like this without financial support?
Well, no, you need the financial support. In New York City at the time, you have to keep in mind that some of the programs already had equipment. Okay. Now, I will say this. There were some business people that stepped up and said, hey, we want to help the kids of today. I knew some potential sponsors that said, you know what? corporations, I should say, and they said, you know what, we want to help the youngsters because we see this as a building block for the future. And it's so important to get education, and athletics is that connection to it. So I went ahead and I was able to secure some financial backing for those, some schools that were on the cusp of being able to pull it off, and some not. But that is, and I'll share this story too as I expand on this a little bit. Once upon it, when I was an athletic director at one of the biggest schools in Florida, at one point they were going to do away with sports because they couldn't afford it. They were going to do, the whole county said, hey, you know what, we're going to do away with sports. And they didn't like this, but one of the things I told them was very simple. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I said, if you do away with sports, all of these youngsters, which is thousands, I think what they'll do is after school, they'll have nothing to do. They'll have no place to go because, you got to keep in mind, sports is not only it's about teamwork, it's about bonding. It teaches you about life skills. It's very, very important. Okay. Education is important, but the life skills that, they learn how to make decisions. The simple thing is, when you play a sport, you have to make decisions. And it's very important to teach youngsters about decision making. So anyway, I went and I didn't make a whole lot of friends, but I told the people in the school system, I said, what's going to happen is, as the person in charge of athletics at this high school, which is one of the biggest in Florida, and at that time I was also in charge of the county athletics, and I said, all of these youngsters that after school that are not playing sports, I think what they're going to do is they're going to go to your homes and they're going to have a catch on your front lawns, and you're going to see how nice they interact and what good kids they are, and you're not going to like all these kids that that are looking for a place to do things after school. So yes, you need to have money. You need to have the backing. You need, in Brazil, I am sure there's plenty of community leaders. I am sure there's the government, and I know I'm letting that cat out of the bag, but this is something that we have been discussing in doing in Brazil. Let's start. Let's help these youngsters. All of these youngsters. Let's organize sports and not just baseball or football. Let's see. I mean, there's a lot of talented youngsters out there in a whole lot of areas. And there's some sports that, again, track, cross country, things like that are so inexpensive. Even soccer. I mean, soccer is such a huge sport in Brazil. I mean, it's the national sport. But overall, it's not a lot. It's not very expensive. Shorts and, balls and nets. And, people have to step up and realize for the betterment of the country, it's essential to have it. I really believe that. And I think Brazil is a wonderful place that would support this tremendously.
Yes, Tony, but you told us something very special on this answer. You told us that some business guy, they were concerned about what was happening at the time. But if you remind, in Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens, even in Manhattan, in the 70s, we had the porno industry rising up pretty fast. And this brought a lot of bad consequences, like violence, criminal issues, drugs trafficking. This is what we are living in a whole Latin America, in the whole Brazil, in so many countries all around the world. And we are not seeing the private sector, like big industries, companies, concerned to help the people to live up this situation.
I understand that, and that's a shame, because all of those industries, without a doubt, still have a negative effect on these big businesses, because those industries kind of I guess put a ceiling on these other things, and you have two choices. You could either say no, and I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to engage, or the second choice is the good people unite and say, we're going to make a difference. So you either want to lay down and get run over, or you want to say, and listen, I have to tell you, I didn't get paid I didn't really get paid almost anything, okay? I got paid nothing. But what I did get was a great feeling that I was helping people. So the people that are good people like yourselves have to have the fortitude to keep moving forward and not take no for an answer. And you're gonna hear no, and people are not gonna want to get involved and all that stuff. But you have to forge forward to make it happen. And I am so comfortable in saying there has to be enough wonderful people in Brazil to say, you know what? Let's help the kids. Let's get an education. Let's get sports, because again, sports. We're all surrounded by this terrible virus right now, okay, and we're all paying the price. And I speak sometimes about recreational dollars. Recreational dollars are dollars that people spend to go to sporting events and to movies and things like that. And my instincts tell me, and I've seen it actually. I think when this virus ends, people are going to look for sporting events. They want a change. They want to have fun. They want to stop being captives in their own house. So there has to be enough people, and I know there is in Brazil, wonderful people that would just say, hey, you know what, enough of this. Let's go ahead and support the kids, and this way we on the weekends or at night we can go watch a sports game and go have some fun.
All right. Hey, Tony. My name is Jose Barbosa. First of all, nice to meet you.
Pleasure, Jose.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And I can tell how privileged we are. And also our audience is very privileged as well to have someone like you with this so many knowledge, so many experience to share. And continue in that situation you talk when you're still there in New York City, and I'm 59 years old, and I get in America in 1983, and I read a lot of things and back in the 80s. Actually, maybe you're going to be there at that period of time. But many people believe that was the ex-mayor Rodolfo Giuliani zero tolerance program that drastically reduced the violence in New York City. But it is possible to see very clear that the educational student program you create, the mentor program you create, among others programs, was the essential tool to contribute to help to reduce violence in the critical time in New York City. That's right, because those little things that you did, I believe, to me, it helps and to reduce violence in the city of New York.
Let me. I'm sorry, Jose. Yeah. I apologize.
Go ahead.
No. Go right ahead. No.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. From 1990 to 1998, specifically, you were in charge of all aspects of 20 boys and 16 girls chain, including hiring, training, evaluating staff, securing transportation, inventory, scheduling officials, obtaining security, budgeting, scheduling games, eligibility, and fundraise. Prior your arrival, the athletic program had hours operate at loss. Tony, under your leadership, for the first time in the school history, athletic program department operate with a financial surplus. It takes someone with a lot of knowledge and desire and determination like you to make the change. Teams achieved district and conference championship, including first time in school history, championship in baseball, girls soccer, and softball. You were in charge of facility use for both athletic and non-athletic events. Coordinate the housekeeping staff, police department, facility department, your maintenance department to assure safety and risk management, standard were met. In that case, after what I read, I have 3 questions to do for you. And my first question is, could you describe what was like to plan, develop, and apply this program? Second question, what were the difficulties encountered since we are always resistant to social programs? And third question, what the percentage you attribute to the significant improvement of the social context in New York City with your mentoring program?
Okay, let's start with the first question. Could you repeat the first question, and I'll answer one at a time.
Okay. Could you describe what was like to plan, develop, and apply the program?
Relentless hours. Relentless hours. I will tell you this. When I was a high school athletic director, I had, in my 8 years, and again, this was one of the largest schools in Florida. In my 8 years, I was also a dean at the school, which is in charge of discipline. I had, I believe it was 5 different principals. I had about 15 different assistant principals. And some of them didn't know me. Some of them didn't like me. Some of them wanted to bring in their own people, which I was fine with, okay? But what would happen is on late Friday nights or early Saturday mornings, even Sundays after church, they would go into the school, the principals, because they worked hard too, and they would pass. My office was, I had a big office, which was all glass windows, and which I loved. And they would pass by and they would say, "What are you doing in here?" And I said, "I'm working." And because my wife worked for a living, my kids were little, and so what I used to do is I used to get up early in the morning because I don't sleep a whole lot of hours. I'm fortunate, and I get up early in the morning. I go, and the principal would walk by and they'd say, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm working." "Well, why are you working on a weekend?" I said, "Because the job has to get done. The job has to," and it was relentless, and I would not take no for an answer. I can tell you, I did fundraisers like I did carnivals, I did car shows, and here's something the 3 years don't know about me. Okay, do you like professional wrestling?
Yes.
Okay. Well, not only did I put on professional wrestling shows, I was enticed, and I actually and I put on shows to raise money for the school. I put on concerts. I put on all these different things, but I put on professional wrestling shows, and I was enticed, and I actually became a professional wrestler. And I can tell you the names because you would know the people that I wrestle with, like Jake the Snake Roberts and Greg the Hammer Valentine and Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Macho Man and Brutus the Barber Beefcake and guys. And I became the champion, believe it or not. But I did and I just did it for fun. But I did it for years. And that's a funny story if you want me to share with that later. But I can tell you a funny story. When I was with the Rays, with the Tampa Bay Rays, but it was relentless hours, hard work to accomplish this because I wouldn't take no for an answer. That's the bottom line. It's hard. I have a great family. I never interfere with my family time. In fact, it's funny you mentioned the baseball, the championship. After 6-7 years, our baseball coach resigned. I became the baseball coach, and I won a championship right away. So I was the coach. So at one of the biggest schools in Florida, we were state ranked for the first time as a 5A school, which is, back then was they only had 6 classifications. So that's the answer to a long answer to your first question.
And the second question is, what were the difficulties encountered since we always resist to social program like your mentoring program?
The school was 25 years old, and there was a lot of coaches and teachers that were there for 25 years. They did not like change. They did not like anything I was doing because I was proactive. And when I raised the money, I said to him, you have two choices. You want new uniforms? Either you help, because I had plenty of coaches that weren't helping out at all. And most of them didn't help out. I had about one or two. And I had probably 60 something coaches, 70 coaches on staff. And what happened was when the budget came out, after the first 6 months there for the second year, they weren't getting a whole lot of money. And they complained, and they complained to the principal, and the principal didn't want any headaches of it. And I said, hey, you didn't help out raise some money, and you're not getting any money. Simple. So I wasn't liked. I wasn't liked. In fact, here's another funny story. They actually wrote a newspaper in the Tampa Tribune had was the big paper there at the time. And somebody wrote an article, who's in charge of this asylum anyway? And it was a story about the principal really didn't run the school or anything in his community. I did, because of how hard I worked and how I got involved with all the community leaders. I went to the stores, I went to the businesses, and I got to know everybody. And I would send our athletes and say, I would tell them stores, hey, you know what, let's get involved and stuff like that. And you have coupons, and I'd give the coupons like Hardee's. I give the students coupons, and they would start going to the Hardee's and the bagel stores and the supermarkets, because I tried to create win-win situations. But I have to tell you that at first, nobody liked it, okay? Except for maybe 2 or 3 people that saw that I was open-minded and I was working so hard. But of the they just turned it back. They really just turned it back. I did all these fundraisers. None of them showed up. None of them showed up. You don't want to show up, don't show up, but you're not getting any money. I had bills. The school had bills to pay. And I had to make sure those bills were paid, because and I had to get to school. It was over $25,000. I think it was $25,000 in debt, and I had to pay that from the previous year. So either jump on board or we leave you behind.
Wow,
that's great. Well, my third question is, what the percentage do you attribute to the significant improvement of social context in New York City with your mentoring program?
I don't quite understand the question. What do I attribute?
Yeah, what the percentage do you attribute to the significant improvement of the social context program in New York City, the mentoring program in New York City?
I think everybody working together. I think what happened was, you start off small with a small group, and people, everybody questions things because it's new, and people don't want to support you because it's new. But once you start off, once you find those few people, whether it's a political leader, whether it's a business person, whether it's just a person that says, I want to help, I love sports. Somebody might say, hey, I love sports. This is great. I'd love to be able to go someplace and watch some sports. Whoever that might be, and then you start small. And then what happens is people start saying, hey, you know what? That's a pretty good idea, or that's a pretty good concept. Hey, look at those guys. They're successful. I want to be part of that success. Because once you're successful, everybody wants to. I tease about, and Adriano, you played in professional baseball here in the U.S. and I use the term jumping on the bandwagon. Once you're successful, everybody wants to jump on board, like they were there from the start. And you know what you do? You pat them on the back and say, "Come on, enjoy the ride and help us out." And that's the most important thing. Everybody working together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's a great explanation, Tony, because we've been discussing about this, and we know how hard it is to find those people that would like to be involved. But we know what you mean when you say nobody pay attention when something is new, because I don't know, changing is really hard for people, right? to do this.
Change is always tough. And, Adriano, here's another thing. You go, and I'm just giving this an example. If there's somebody you know that can help out, what you have to say is there a way you can help out? Can you umpire? Can you get involved? Could you put your arm around a young person, a young child, and just say, hey, you know what? It's going to be okay. The smallest little things mean so much to kids. And those people, you also ask them, you say, hey, you know what? Maybe you know somebody. Maybe you've heard of somebody. Is there somebody you've even heard of that might be able to help us? So they might not even know that person, but you look them up. With the internet, you can look everybody up today. I'm sure our audience, hopefully, they're going to look me up on LinkedIn and reach out with questions. That's what I'm hoping for. But I just, you have to keep. It's not easy. It's not easy, but I tell you what, if when you gentlemen, and we've talked about this, I would love to go on the ride with you and try to make this work. But working with youngsters is so important, and professional sports is so important, and people know. I'm sure, like at the Super Bowl, thousands and thousands of people will be turning out next week to watch the Super Bowl because they love sports. Everybody's going to watch the Super Bowl, and it doesn't matter whether it's a youngster or it's an adult in professional sport. People love it.
Wow,
Absolutely.
Tony, this is really, really impressive because, like I said before, I had a chance to watch your resume, and I could see you're not that kind of person that just do one thing. So we know that you move between. I will change a little bit the subject, okay? But
Sure.
we're gonna move forward. We know that you move between field and executive activities. How was it for you to perform this function, taking into account the complexity of each one of them?
The truth of the matter is, and I learned this late in my life. The former New York Giants head coach Bill Parcells once said this: is sports and coaching there's different addictions in life, and sports is an addiction. And it's funny because I was blessed again. College. I've coached college, won a championship, a regular season championship as a college baseball coach in Harlem, New York, at City College of New York. Okay. And I went and I changed course from coaching many sports, and I went into being, starting to go into the front office side of professional baseball at first. And when I arrived in New Orleans, they found out the staff, it was a AAA baseball team for the Astros, and the staff, the manager and coaches found out that I was a former college baseball coach. And so what happened was during they had a baseball camp, and they needed somebody to oversee the baseball camp with the coaches and players. So I got involved with that. I oversaw their baseball camp. And then every day I started, before home games, there's kind of like a slow period for front office people because they get ready for that night. So they have to set everything up. And so so what I would do is I would spend my afternoons while everybody else was going home and getting something to eat and changing their clothes for the night, I would go on the field. And I was on the field, and the team that year won the AAA championship. And I would go on the field and work out players, and a lot of players that because our whole starting team played Major League Baseball. Okay, so I would go on the field every day, and whether I was hitting balls, pitching batting practice, working with pitches, or anything like that, whatever they needed, I would do, and I loved it. And then what happened was the Houston Astros, actually, our first base coach, his mother had passed away, and he had to go home for a little bit of time. The Houston Astros actually asked me if I'd like to be the coach at the AAA level, and which would have been an incredible dream for me. And first, my mind was going crazy. I called my wife up, and I said, I just had an offer to be a AAA coach. This is incredible. this is wonderful. And I went in, and my boss called me into the office, the general manager of the team. He says, he said, the Astros called me and asked permission to speak to you. And I says, oh, so you know. So he said, yes. He said, but he said, I know you're a loyal person. He said, and you know who brought you here to New Orleans. And he said, so whatever decision you make. He said, but we got big plans for you. He said, but I know you're a loyal person, so you'll really reconsider. And that's why I relate to what Bill Parcells said, that coaching and is it's an addiction. You can't get it out, because especially if you enjoy success, and you could, Adriano, you can relate, that's for sure. But so I turned it down. I turned down being a AAA coach, and I stuck with the front office stuff, and I ended up going up the ladder very quickly and having a wonderful experience.
We know that. Wow, this is something. What you're saying is very similar to what I do, because I decided to study sports management and then strength and conditioning. Most of the people ask me, why did you choose those career different? I said, because you need one, because you have to understand the business side, and then you have to know what happened in the field. You know what I mean? And vice versa, because it's really necessary to know how both sides works. Because the problem is sometimes people, they try to keep you only in one track, but it's important to know what kind of person do you have in working for you, and explore more that person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, I would like that you could explain to me and to our audience this versatility to work in the different areas, because how was for you work in the field and different sports, baseball and American football? This versatility is not that simple. I mean, in Brazil, it's not that simple. That's why I would like you to explain to the audience and to people from my country to understand that it's possible to work in different sports, different area, and also be executive, a businessman, and also to work in the field.
Well, as you mentioned, my degree's in sports medicine. When I graduated, I had already been working in the field at camps and things along the line. In fact, at a young age, I got to know and became very close with Joe Namath, and that was a blessing of my life. He an incredible human being. I seen him after all these years. I actually had the opportunity to introduce my son and my daughter to him, and they were absolutely amazed because he's such a wonderful man. And I used to be a trainer at his football camp for 3 weeks every summer. And when I received my degree, the double A trainer, head trainer for the New York Yankees double A team, which was in Tennessee back then, was getting promoted, and he asked me if I wanted to take the double A position. So I went down to George Steinbrenner, just bought the team. I went down to Florida, and I was ready to take the team and take the job. And Mr. Steinbrenner, which I made the mistake because he was an incredible human being. I was in his presence thereafter. I made the mistake. He offered me $12,000 a year to become a trainer. I turned it down. I said, I can go into teaching and coaching and make more than double that. And I missed out on that opportunity just to be around the Yankee organization and the people. But so, I had that background. I became a coach. But the things I learned as a trainer, even when I coached college football, I became the strength and conditioning coach for the college team. Because knowing, just as you're speaking about strength and conditioning, because it's such an important aspect, and now everybody realizes that in professional sports. Everybody, back once upon a time, in the off season, players would get a job at mechanics and whatever they could do in the off season, car salesmen, whatever they can do to make money. But Now they stay in shape all year round, and they know the great importance of it. So it's a different world. And so I transitioned into coaching. That's how I got involved in coaching. I like to learn. I do public speaking. I have no problem speaking with anybody, but I also, I always say this too. I think listening, people hear, but they don't listen. And when I first get someplace, I do a lot of listening. I would tell my staff, I always, whether it was as an athletic director, whether it was a new head coach who brought on assistants, whether when I became a general manager and vice president of baseball, I would say to my staff, listen, if I went into let me use it. When I went into a place that there was some staff members that I inherited, I would tell them for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to listen to everything you say. I'm going to ask you 1,000 questions so I can learn. And when I exhaust you, just say, Tony, could you give me some breathing space? But I'm gonna ask you 1,000 questions. But give me 2 weeks so I can learn, and then we can move forward. And I won't bother you after that. I'll bother you once in a while so I can continue to learn. So I like to learn. I like to listen to what people are saying. People hear it, but they don't. A lot of people don't pay attention to what you're saying. So listening. I always say listening is a lost art in our society.
Yeah, Tony, but how was for you to work with two different sports, like I said, baseball and football? Because here in Brazil, if I used to work with the soccer, people, they don't see me working with basketball. You know what I mean? It's very hard to have this transition between two different sports in our country. That's why I made this question for you, because I want to know how it was for you to have this versatility to work between two different sports.
It was I was offered, I was offered to be an assistant college basketball coach.
Really?
Yeah, also. And I just said, you know what, I was coaching college football and college baseball at two different, places. So at the time, and I really just to do it, to say I was able to do it. I was offered a job at John Jay College as an assistant coach. But, I enjoyed it. And, there's nothing wrong with that, because, you know what? People should be involved with more than one sport. Youngsters should be playing more than one sport. I am the furthest, and the funny thing is, with my background in sports medicine, I still read up about this. So they just did a study about knee injuries, and I'm sorry I don't remember the specifics, but it was Emory University in Atlanta, which is a very prestigious medical university, and they just did a study about they've seen the same type of injuries knee injuries in soccer players. And why? Because the youngsters, these were college athletes, but they were going there from all over, and they were seeing the same type of injuries, because soccer they consistently develop the same muscles, I would guess, is the best way to put it. Once upon a time, athletes used to play sports all day and night and play every sport. Okay? And coaches used to coach all different sports, because that's what it was about. Now, athletes are saying, hey, you're a baseball player at a young age, and you're a baseball player, you're a basketball player, you're a track star. That is the wrong approach. I am adamant about it, because in more sports you play, one is the more social skills you pick up, because there's different elements, which is the most important thing in life, because only a small percentage of youngsters play college ball, never mind professional sports, but what it teaches you, again, social skills and education. That's what it's all about. So, it's more important for youngsters to play a variety of sports and develop their entire body. Because when you play basketball, it develops different muscles than baseball, and it's different than soccer, and it's different than football, and it's different than, so it's a more rounded experience.
Awesome, Tony. This is so impressive because what you were saying is not so easy to translate for the people because your versatility is so incredible, but you did a lot of things in your life. You permit yourself to experience different things. This is what nobody wants to do. They trying to find one thing to do and believe that this only thing will be forever. And sometimes we can understand that you can move in different ways and different things, doing different jobs and different activities. But when you get a highest level, I think that is not so common to find out everywhere you go. Why I'm telling this? It's not so easy to become a general manager in one company. It's not so easy. You know that. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. But you were GM and vice president of the Waves Los Angeles Dodgers Class A affiliate. You also were a GM of the Atlantic League Championship Newark Bears professional baseball teams. In addition, with many other activities in different departments within these organizations. Could you give us details of what these activities like, especially in the position you held? This is my first question.
But you would like me to explain what activities I did at each location?
No. Details, if you can give it some details, because you were a general manager doing different things in different departments, and the position that you held like a GM, what is the responsibility for the GM? What is the responsibility for do everything that make the organization runs? This is the idea here, to educate people just to understand, because everybody wanted to be a boss, but they need to understand what boss means.
You know what? If you're going to call yourself a boss, you shouldn't be doing it. That's first of all. Although you do have to have that separation. Let me say this. You know, a number of people in professional sports have said part of the reason why I'm so successful is because what I learned as a coach. Because you learn how to delegate, you learn how to incorporate a lot of different personalities, and you learn you to be successful, you have to maximize everybody's potential. You treat everybody differently, but ultimately the goal is the same. And people in professional baseball, in professional sports, have said they've attributed a lot of my successes because of what I've learned from that. And when they asked me the question similar to you, I answered very simply. I think of myself as a conductor in an orchestra. The conduct, and I'm not a music person, believe me. If I was to sing, I'd break all the windows. Okay, I love music. I love all types of music. There's, my wife, we don't care what it is. My wife and I go out, we hear this music, we're going to listen to, because we like to sit and relax and listen to music, and it doesn't matter what type. So, with that being said, you think of a conductor of an orchestra. He stands over the orchestra, and he leads, and he maximizes each component of that orchestra. He tells them what to do and when to. And I've always believed as a general manager, as a leader. I don't like the word boss. I have plenty of people who call me boss, and I tell them, don't call me boss. I don't like it. Okay, I'm just a hardworking guy. I describe myself as a hardworking person that just likes to have fun. Okay, we all try to do the right thing. I'm not perfect. I'm just a hardworking person, and I consider myself as a conductor of an orchestra. And I want to maximize all of the components that are part of it. And if I'm a general manager, and when I was vice president in the Dodgers organization, my staff, everybody had a role to play, and they knew my door was always open. So I learned from them; they would learn from me. But that's really that's why my approach has always been.
Oh, awesome. Before we continue, I will ask to our audience to give that like, to send this link for the friends, to share with their social media networks, to participate with us, and send us some questions. Maybe we can answer right now, or maybe we can answer in a little future. But my second question for you is, I know that you don't like to be called as a boss. That's fine. That I like it, because you are a conductor, just like you said. You're not a boss. You are trying to improve the people just to bring their best. And to be a general manager is not easy. It's not too simple. But to be a general manager in this kind of organizations is a little bit harder, because you need to understand something special, because these structures move hundreds of millions of dollars. You know that. According to your graduations and masters, where does this skills and taste for working in business came from? From where?
Well, I mean, my father taught me about hard work, that's for sure, and having a work ethic. And I got it. You know, my whole family. You know, I come from a very big family. My mother comes from a family of 13.
Wow.
I have cousins and relatives all over the world that I don't even know. People, I've been on baseball fields or football fields, and people walk over and say, "Hey, you know, I'm your cousin." I laugh, and then I have to call somebody and say, "Hey, is this person really my cousin?" So, and I had an uncle that was a congressman, and I had some other relatives that were in pro sports. So, I mean, people would track me down, but you know, it's about hard work. It's about treating people properly, treating people with respect. There's a lot of components to everything you do, but really it's hard. I describe myself as I'll repeat myself. I'm a blue collar guy that has a strong work ethic. I like to have fun. I have a sense of humor. And that's really the bottom line. You know, you need to have that drive to be successful. And that's why we speak about sports in Brazil. What an incredible opportunity. And I'm going to digress a little bit. You know, we spoke about athletes playing multiple sports, and I'm sorry, I forgot, but Adriano had mentioned that there's a sport where that's big in Brazil, and I forgot what it was, Adriano, so I apologize. But we spoke about multiple talents and multiple levels, about how can you take some of these athletes and make them into baseball players. And we spoke about, hey, you know what, we could look at the arm action, and I forgot the name of that sport, so I apologize. But there was a sport where there was a lot of arm speed involved and arm action, and of course athletic ability. And we say, hey, you know what, they could be pitchers or shortstop, center field, or catcher. Something that requires a lot of arm strength. Of course, pitchers, because you're looking for people that can throw hard. In our society, instead of looking at guys that can throw strikes, everybody wants somebody who can throw 90 miles an hour, or more. So, but those abilities are exchangeable between sports, and when we speak about sports and in bringing pro sports, because we've spoken about football and we've spoken about baseball, but we need to get these athletes and say, hey, you know what, we can do more than one thing. And get them more rounded physically.
Awesome. All right, Tony. You can tell that I like the word you use, to be a conductor, and I'm a coach too in track and field, and I wish to be a runner, and today I coach in a high school level, and I know. I always say, coach, gotta be demanding without being demanding, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
And look like a conductor. You did very well. I like that approach. Tony, you have a very strong relationship with University of North Carolina at Wilmington, which it is a public university. In Brazil, you have an instructor that in which the calls of the best universities are public. But to open a private universities, businessmen in Brazil seek public money through the National Bank of Social Economic Development that has low interest. However, in Brazil does not have a law to surcharge large fortune, which leads to a result of large companies seeking public funds to invest, but the profits remain only and exclusive for owners and shareholders. Tony, as you've been talking here, you know the rest of the world have the impression that our universities in the United States are private. Since there always talk of the most famous ones like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT. Since you've been at the university, since you have been a good job at University of North Carolina, I have, again, three questions for you.
This is a main account of three. It's a 3-point shot.
Well, no, he said two before, and he threw me three, and I couldn't remember all three of them.
So I'm going to go one at a time this time.
Okay, hope they're not going to be four of them this time.
No, it'll be three. I'll go one at a time.
Thank you.
Can you explain to us what is the role of University of North Carolina in Wilmington in the North American education system?
Well, I mean, it's a public university. It's a public university. I had dual roles because I worked there, and I was brought in to oversee all of the events of the university, major events. Okay, from concerts to shows to performances to and then I ended up being a professor there. I was an adjunct professor, I should say. So I take class there. I will say this, I am learning more and more about the private schools. Private schools here, there are more and more opening up, and they are people are investing in them because they are making money. Okay, whether there's schools here now that start at kindergarten, and they have students that when they start in kindergarten, that's the feeder system. They stay in the school all the way up until they graduate high school. So you have that revenue stream, for lack of better words. Yes, there's scholarships to some, but the business people see this as a great investment. Not only in the youngsters' education, but it's a financial investment for them, and they are making a lot of money. I will say this, and that is growing tremendously here. And you drive any place and you see this private school, and they have athletic programs. They have great athletic facilities, from soccer fields to baseball fields, football fields. The gymnasium is incredible. Tracks are just usually, of course, tracks around football fields. But the growth in private schools is just amazing here because it's an investment, and again, it's paying huge dividends for the business people.
Okay, got it. So the second question, could you tell those that are watching our channel, what is the economic and social impact that University of North Carolina and Wilmington have in the city and the whole region that surrounds it?
Well, Wilmington is a beach community. It's unique because unless you work at the university, GE Electric has a plant there, and that is a pharmaceutical company there. Mm-hmm. But unless you work at one of those three places, there's not a whole lot of jobs. You know, people graduate there and they go all over the country because because there's not a whole lot of jobs unless you open up your own business. Okay. Again, it's a beach community. It's a wonderful city. So it has a huge economical impact on the city because it employs. It's a Division I school. It's a big university. It employs so many people. It brings so much because people come from all over to attend school there. Whether it's nursing school, whether it's the PE, the Cameron School of Business. Students come from all over the country to go there, and it has it's bringing dollars because all those students that attend there. And I don't know how many students are there. I would guess I'm guessing, but I bet you I'm pretty close. Probably about 14,000 students are there.
Close to 18, 17, almost 18,000, almost.
Yeah, because that's because they have a new regime there, and they're being a little bit more proactive, which is wonderful. Because that's the way it should be. Because it's a great place. It has an opportunity to have a lot of great things. So. But imagine bringing 18. If let's not count mommy and daddy and the brothers and sisters that don't visit. Okay, the hotels. But think about this. Imagine if that city had 18,000 people a year less. The type of money. And they also have a movie studio, Screen Gems movie studio, by the way. But that being said, that's 18,000 people a year at least that they can count on, and that doesn't count all the hotels when families come in and stuff like that. Restaurants. How about the restaurants? The impact on that.
Wow. Right.
That's great.
That's great. This is a huge number if you try to study. But Tony, we need to switch a little bit again on the topics and the subjects that we are talking about now, and to talk about this information that we need from you. We know that there are 3 major sporting events in the world: the Olympic Games, the Soccer World Cup, and the Super Bowl. In Brazil, NFL has grown a lot in the last 15 years. You are the creator and CEO of America Arena Football. My first questions: can you tell to our audience exactly what this league is, Arena Football?
Basically, it's professional football that's played inside a hockey rink. So the action is played on a 50-yard field as opposed to 100 yards. And since there's such an interest in the soccer, indoor soccer is so much faster than a regular soccer game. Well, if you can take that aspect and think about football with grown men being played inside a hockey rink, how fast and how hard hitting, that's what it is.
Oh, can you tell us when it is played and what is the idea behind the American Arena Football? Because nobody just invests because they love it or they want to have fun. What is the idea to have this?
Back when it was first invented, again, it was just an alternative to football because the NFL had, with all of its success, it was kind of, I guess it was what it was, and nobody could make a dent into that football industry. There's football players all over this country. There's athletes all over the country, but football, unless you played on an NFL team, there was if you retired, there was no place to play. There was no other options. So that's how arena football came to play. Again, it's a fast-moving sport. It was picked up on national television, which made it grow very quickly. And unfortunately, it probably grew. Some of it grew too fast, but that's how it evolved.
Oh, because this is the idea, just to give some more opportunities for the people that they never had any chance to be on NFL, they have an opportunity to be in the other different leagues and do what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, again, there was no options. Either they played professional football, they graduate college. How many people will graduate college, especially Division I schools, that are incredible college football players, and they don't make it into the NFL? So what happens then is, what do these people do? They still want to play, and they want it, whether it's just for fun or whether it's they would like to make a little extra money. So arena football gave them that opportunity because nobody really wanted to compete against the NFL.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I hope the audience did the same.
All right. Okay. All right, Tony. First of all, I'm very impressed. And how many hats can you wear? And you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a man that live and understand and try to be the best you can be, whatever thing you do. That's why the success behind you are something that I start right now, have a lot of admiration for you, because not a lot of people can do what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Before was said that fortunately your personal resume is very vast, and as a result you have to return to our program for more often, so that you can talk a little bit more about your professional experience. However, we would like to know more about your professional skills. Tony, you should know that in many countries, like in Eastern Europe, Latin America, and the African continent, the business class represent less than 5% of local population. However, they exercise a great political and consequently economic influence in their respective countries. And you try to understand why business do not, in those countries where I said, do not invest a lot, or there's not a lot of investment by companies or corporation or business people, businessmen, whatever it is. My question to you is, could you give us an advice on what needs to be done to persuade the business class of Brazil and Latin America, the African countries, and Eastern Europe to become more socially responsible, and at the same time invest on the sport industry segment, and not the way they are doing in nowadays?
I tell you, we have the Super Bowl coming up next week. I would take that and captivate what that is bringing during these terrible times with the COVID virus. That is still going to bring economy to places, okay? And if you can show that even during these very difficult times in our society today, that the Super Bowl still has an impact. We know not, small sporting events have the same impact. But what happens is, if you have a sporting event, and we spoke about trying to bring professional, and we'd love to do that, bring professional teams, professional sports to to Brazil. I mean, but if you could say, hey, you know what? If we have a sporting event, people are going to come. They're going to go to restaurants. They're going to go to shops. They don't just show up for the sporting event. They arrive in the morning. They go have breakfast in maybe a store, and then they go browse in the shops. They go sightseeing. They buy. If they're like my wife, they buy things from the stores. Just so people could say, hey, you know what? I've been to this city or town. They interact with the merchants. Then they go to lunch. Okay, then they go to lunch, and then they do some more shopping, and they might go to different areas, so in different areas of the city. So it's a cultural thing. It's a culture in the sense that It's not just a baseball game or a football game. It's a social event, and it brings commerce. That's the thing. It brings dollars and cents. So when you plan on this, right away you say, hey, we don't. Let's say this: you have 1,000 business, and I'm just making numbers up. You have 1,000 businesses in a city, okay? And the businesses say, you know, I don't want to throw in a couple of dollars so that we have a baseball team here, okay? And again, the four of us want to bring baseball there. I've had conversations about bringing football there, and I'll do anything to help out. We can do this as a team, and that's why I'd like to do this. But now you go to businesses and they say, no, I don't want to spend the money. And the next thing is you say, you know what? Here's some statistics. If we have a professional baseball team here and we're playing a team from another city in Brazil, how many people from that other city are going to come here just to follow their baseball team and bring you revenue? How many people from our city are going to come out of their houses instead of sitting home watching TV? How many people are going to say, hey, you know what? We're going to go and enjoy the overall experience, the atmosphere. What do they do with the Super Bowl right now? What do they do with the World Series? It's just not the games. It's a festival, okay? When you go to, once the semifinal games were played, okay, the NFC and AFC championships were played, they won. Thereafter, they started doing things in Tampa this year. Okay, I've been there. I've seen it, and it's incredible. I've had the honor of being invited to Super Bowls. I will tell you, the festivities or anything, and the commerce that people from all over the country go because of the Super Bowl. Now, we're not talking about the same scale. I understand it's much smaller, but you know what? It's also more commerce than they're getting by sitting there and not supporting these events. A lot more commerce. They're missing out. They don't realize that they have an opportunity by supporting this to make a lot of money. Or, and I'm sorry because I'm giving another long answer, but what about when a player on a baseball, basketball, whatever sport you want, becomes famous? I mean, you've had Olympians on this show already. What happens if one of those Olympians and went to one of the sandwich shops in town and they advertised? What kind of business would be there? Tremendous, and they would make money. So they have to look at the big picture. And I know as we say here, I'm preaching to the choir because you three gentlemen already know this. But I think there's an opportunity because you're at the ground level. What better way to build something when the sky is the limit and you're at the ground level because you don't have that now? So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And the government officials. The government officials, I would love to work with them because I'm sure there's some great proactive government officials that say, hey, you know what, we can do this. We can, even if we start small, and we can start small. We don't have to start big. We as we say, you crawl before you walk before you jog, and you jog before you run. Okay? So we start small, and when we see how it evolves.
Look, what you were saying
nice.
Is incredible, but the question is on this because a little bit before it was asked you about the business guys in Latin America, in Africa, because their mindset on sports is not a good business. They don't understand as a business and opportunity. If you try to sell this, they just understand that they are spending money, not investing to have something back. How can you deal with this kind of situation? Because if they don't understand and they are small, just like you can see, they represent less than 5% of the society in the countries, because the billionaires and millionaires, they represented less than 2%, 1%, but they have all the control in the political system, in the governments, and everything. They have their arms. How to change this situation? Because United States, you have a lot of businessmen that they understand about the kind of business, but in Latin America, in some countries in Africa, in Eastern Europe, and everything, how to convince them to understand what you are saying?
I would seek out those people that are billionaires, and I would pound them and make sure I touch base with every single one of them. Second of all, I can't be convinced there's not, and I know there are plenty of people, U.S. businessmen, that are making money in your country and other countries. And they know what it is to have sports because they love it, and I know they miss it, and they would like to be involved. And when they're making that much money on your territory, they would think that they got to contribute that also. Third of all, think of nearby countries like Venezuela and Dominican Republic, and you could show them, look at the amount of fans that show to these games. Look at the social aspect. Show them examples, positive examples of what's being done, so that they can say, hey, you know what? This might work. There's no magic solution to this. Okay, it's just a lot of hard work, and you have to explore and every avenue and be persistent. That's because there are some countries that's successful, and you have to use those countries, successful countries, as an advertisement to be conveyed in your country. And again, I believe there's we know there's wealthy people there. It could be 1%, it could be 2%, but they're there, and there's plenty of people from the U.S. that are making money in Brazil and other countries that know all about sports.
Excuse me, Tony. Before you just said that you preach for the choir. No, I think we are three here have a lot of things to learn from you. So you not preach for the choir. The most important thing here, you are preaching for our audience. Like us, they also need to know. And so you are preaching for a lot of people in Latin America and passing on knowledge. So I want to just let you know that. So the importance of your presence here in this show tonight is to preach for this audience that don't have no idea and what it is, what you do, and your experience and your knowledge. Just I want to say that. So go ahead.
Thank you. And when I say I'm preaching to the choir, I'm really focusing on the three of you, because I've had these conversations with Edno and Adriano, and I listen to you as a track coach. So you three gentlemen understand what I'm saying. That's what I mean. The three of you understand this and know this. We need to have this be contagious in a positive way, that people want to. And again, I'll repeat this. I'm on LinkedIn. Okay, you can go Tony Zefireto. That starts with a Zefiretto on LinkedIn. Again, Tony Tony Zefiretto. Go to LinkedIn. I'm here to help. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for people to get started on the ground. You got gentlemen that I'm speaking to on this that are dedicated to youngsters that made their life. They're dedicated to sports and improving things. So we have some good building blocks to start off with.
We appreciate it. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you. And anytime, I appreciate the time, and anytime you'd like me to come on the show, I'd be more than happy to come on, and we can continue the conversation.
All right, but tonight, unfortunately, it's not finished yet.
Oh, okay.
Great to know that. Great to know that.
But it's so great to know that.
But, well, let's move forward. We have more questions for you, Tony. Tony, we had the opportunity to meet to develop a winter ball league that, unfortunately, due to the pandemic in 2020, it was not possible. It was not possible yet to make it works, including a key part in this discussion that Joe Alvarez will be with us next week. You know him.
Wait. He's gonna be on the show, Joe?
Yes.
That's terrific.
Yeah. In most of countries around the world, they use a club system. Do you know that?
Yes.
Okay. Consequently, this structure is based on federation and confederation. The managed championship in most countries in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and the countries of African continent. However, the United States has shown and shows that the sports educational system is much more efficient in a social area because it leads all individuals to healthier life, playing sports, and in the intellectual formation of their society. It also contributes to economic development to the point of holding the largest and most profitable leagues in the world, such as the NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Here's the question: how to promote the American model of sports leagues in these countries that we have mentioned, and attract the interest of businessmen and business sector in this location to improve their socio-economic condition?
If I'm not answering this, I apologize. I think I understand your question, but here's what I think, and I'll reiterate what I said before. I think you have some nearby countries with a business model that are successful in baseball. How many people have come out of the Dominican Republic? How many people have come out of Venezuela? There's a big following, and there's plenty of other countries that started at ground zero with sports. Look at the Olympics. All these countries, baseball's back in the Olympics now, and all these countries. So I think you have some close by examples. I am, and you know better than I do. I don't have the answer to this question. But are people aware? People in Brazil aware of the level of baseball in surrounding countries like a Dominican Republic? Are they familiar with that?
No.
No.
I need to tell that nobody understand. And unfortunately, what happened when we are in such places that we are talking about, for example, baseball, they say, what? Yeah, we have these huge numbers running in Venezuela and Dominican Republic that represents over than 30% of the economy in the country. In Venezuela, I remember in 2000, they were running around almost $2 billion per year in Venezuela, the baseball. But the people, they don't understand. It's much more than soccer in all over this country. And nobody wants to understand this because, I have this, I have that, I don't understand too much, I don't want to be involved. Because I think that they have a lazy mind to trying to figure out what is the best way to do something different, because they are fighting, struggling to get the little piece what we have offered in this country that they are mentioning.
Well, but you have to keep in mind, now with technology, we have streaming, we have so many things, and I bet you can, if you target the right people, you could get a film of a baseball game in Dominican Republic, or in you have the Jan Gomes, you have the Bichette. I mean, people with ties, Manny Ramirez, ties to your country. So you have to incorporate all and everything you can to show them, so you can be visible. I tell people all the time, I'm a very visible person. I like to see. And if you could get some streaming of some of the games in the nearby countries to get some, get the blood flowing, get some excitement going, and say, hey, we have, these guys played in the U.S. baseball. They made all this money, but at the same time, we understand we're not at this level. We want to start off slow, but these are countries that nearby that look what they're accomplishing, and we're being shortchanged here because we're not looking big picture. that might be an avenue. That might, pique somebody's interest.
In my personal opinion, I think it's more about passion than business. And I mean, passion keep people blind. That's why they don't see the business, even in soccer. So soccer is huge in Brazil, but doesn't bring a lot of money to the country. You know what I mean? We don't feel that the soccer league or the soccer game is profitable for the country. They don't bring a lot of incoming for the economy of the country. So if there's a huge passion for the sports of soccer, and people think that they know how to do a business, but if you don't see the result of this business, in my personal opinion, this business is wrong. But the challenge is how to change the mindset of the passion to bring to the business side. This is
very simple. The same passion that you want them to have, you have to have, and you can't take no for an answer. That's the only way to do it. And again, giving them examples, because I tell my staff this. I would tell my staff about networking. You find somebody, and as I shared before, if you don't know somebody that's interested, if you're not, let me rephrase that. If you're not interested, do you know somebody that's interested? And when you find that one person that's interested, then you say, hey, do you have any friends that also might be interested? Anybody you can think of? And that's the only way. Now, again, there's no right or wrong answer here. The only thing I'm saying that you can't get down about this. You need to be passionate about this at all times, and you have to continue to be persistent.
Well, Tony, this is awesome. We are doing this for several years. And right now, just to make a little bit more sauce in the program, I need to ask you something in 3 questions, 3 different questions that I will do one by one. You became a management consultant, right? You became a management consultant.
Oh, yes.
Right. You gave the consultants to city officials, team owners, legal officials, business owners, and team executives, and so on, if I'm not wrong. No, but you're right. My first question to you is, when it comes to city officials, what is the most difficult part for them to understand your ideas and business proposals?
To change a stubborn, old school mindset. That's the most difficult challenge always. And you know what? That's the answer. I mean, you go into different towns, and here's the other thing. When you just like when you're coaching, okay, you have 5 or 10 people you're trying to convince on about something or more. They all have different mindsets. Your goal and your thought process is your expectations of yourself and how to get it done is ultimately the same. But you're dealing with different people with different personalities, and you have to kind of juggle it all the times and how to push the right buttons in dealing with their personalities and trying to make them wake up and say, hey, you know what? Maybe he's onto something. So it's not easy.
We know that. But my next question is, many of these officials only do something if they receive some kind of incentive that we can call corruptions.
Oh, the people I was dealing with?
No, not only you, but they do something sometimes.
Yeah, that's universal. That's every place.
And how to deal with, because we are trying to bring a better world, but how can bring a better world if you're not finished with the corruptions?
You know what? I keep my mouth closed. No, it's true. I try to keep my mouth closed, which is not easy. I keep my mouth closed. I listen, and I keep them engaged to the end of the rainbow, and then I start to then I get more feedback from them, what exactly they're looking for, and to see how I can incorporate them to get them on board.
Oh, awesome. And especially for Brazil, what do you think you can advise to the private sectors, not as a dependent on the government as it is, especially large companies that have a lot of political power, avoid taxes paying, and they establishing exploitation through wages that they call law of market?
Hey, look, just all of that is said and good, but I just, when it comes, and we've talked about baseball school and all of that, when it comes to dealing with students and children and kids, people have soft spots. And that's, we're trying to start at a low level. And yeah, we've talked about some pretty big things for that country that can be fabulous for socially, economically, and we understand people don't understand it. But at the same time, when it comes to kids, let's start some youth programs and let it grow from there.
Well, this is the new talent.
That's good. Hey, Tony, you getting there almost. I know you. It's you hanging there for a long time, but just still a little bit tight there because you almost finished here. So, Tony, within many activity that you have already exercised, there are some more, such as increase revenue and attendance, renegotiate the name rights for coastal federal field, oversight of staff training in branding, sales, operation, marketing, and customer service. The magical question for you it is, can you explain to us what is branding, marketing, and advertisement to our view to understand the difference of those?
Branding is your company, or you want to get your name out there in a positive way. And it could be a lot of nothing, okay? All little things, but it's still getting your name out so that if if we said Brazilian baseball, okay? Now, the word Brazilian baseball in Brazil, nobody knows because it doesn't happen, okay? But the more you say Brazilian baseball or baseball in Brazil, however you want to phrase it, but if I said it to you, you heard me say it. Now you pass it along to the next person, and you say baseball in Brazil, and he passes, and Edno passes to Adriano, and then everybody baseball in Brazil, and then people are going to want to know what's the buzz? Why is everybody saying what is the baseball in Brazil? And people get curious about that, and then that's what branding is, as opposed to advertising. Advertising is, hey, hey, we're going to advertise baseball in Brazil. You know what? If you sometimes less information is better, but you want to turn baseball in Brazil, Brazilian baseball, whatever you want. And this is just an example, of course, but you want a phrase or on the tip of people's tongues, and that's what I call branding. Okay,
about marketing.
Marketing is a more of a concerted effort. You're spending dollars. It's really a concerted effort from a lot of different ways, and usually it comes from, again, spending money to advertise what you're doing. Okay. I give you a great example. This is a funny story. I went to Wilmington, which is a beach community, and we had a gentleman that one of our owners brought on. I didn't think he was too swift at all, but he was a friend of our owner. And so he was all excited that he got an airplane to carry a banner over the beach to advertise when we had games. So every time we had a game during the day, a plane and it didn't cost us a lot of money. I just gave the guy free tickets to a game, and he flew to plane for free, so it was all free. So I told this gentleman that worked for me. I said, let me ask you a question. What type of return are we getting on this? I mean, it's not costing us a lot of money or anything, but how many fans that are coming to the game are actually from that advertisement that we are paying for, kind of. And he says, I don't know. I said, well, you need to know what type of. I said, well, what is the banner say? And he said, it says catch the wave. I says, what did it say? So he says, it says catch the wave. I said, so how do the people, all those thousands of people at the beach, how do they know it's a baseball game? How do they know it's not the wave in the ocean? How do you know it's not about surfing? It doesn't relate anything to what we are doing. So you are not branding. You're not you're doing absolutely nothing but wasting everybody's time. So I fired him, actually, because I didn't like him to begin with. And again, he was friends with our own. And I have to tell you, I've only fired 5 people in my entire life. 5 people, that's it. Okay? And that's the truth. And him I fired because he thought he knew everything. He thought he had all the answers. And he did this knucklehead thing, catch the wave. I mean, really? How do people know there's a baseball team here? Put on there, hey, catch the Los Angeles Dodgers minor league team tonight. Say something like that to entice people. So, but I have a lot of funny stories like that.
Oh, awesome. You can share with us.
Well, Tony, this is really nice, but I have the last question for you, Tony. It's almost done. And I think for you, it's very simple and very easy to do that. But like we said, for our audience, it's very complex because they don't understand. Tony, could you explain to our audience the difference between minor league, big leagues, and independent league?
Sure. Minor league baseball teams in minor league baseball are affiliated with major league teams. So the Yankees, the Rays, all of the major league teams that everybody hears about has minor league players that are, I guess, working out and playing games so that they can hopefully get to the major league level. Okay, they have rookie league, they have Class A, they have AA, AAA, and then of course the major league level, and it's all being restructured now. Independent baseball is professional players that, because they're getting paid, they're still professional players, but they are not the teams in independent teams and leagues. They're not affiliated with any major league baseball club. So they're not, once upon a time they did intermingle. Independent teams played in leagues and played against affiliated or minor league teams, but that doesn't happen anymore. So all the independent leagues have their own teams in there. None of them are affiliated, and Major League Baseball now operates and oversees all of the minor league teams.
Oh, thank you for your answer. Unfortunately, we got this end, but we appreciate your presence here. I hope, and I'm almost sure that our audience, they enjoyed a lot our conversation here, our chat. As we told, and you put yourself available to come back. One more time, I will ask to our audience to subscribe on the channel, to give a little like, and share with their social media network. And once again, it's more than a pleasure to have you here with us, sharing your stories, your knowledge that probably you've given us 2% of everything that you did.
There's a lot of empty space in between my ears, so it's okay. And again, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope I have the opportunity and the pleasure of doing this again. I thank you, all 3 of you. And again, people could reach out to me on LinkedIn. And you know what? If they can't reach out to Tony Zefireto on LinkedIn with any questions, anything I can help with, but they could always reach out to you 3 gentlemen easily, and you know, we're friends. We've become friends, and you know, they can send you gentlemen questions or anything, and I'm sure you would forward it to me also.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well,
For
Tony,
sure.
in the name of AES Sports Legacy Channel, I will thank you and appreciate your presence with us. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You have a
You
great
too.
night.
True.